Okay, City Council work session, Tuesday, March 8th, 2000. I need a approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, wait a minute. Before we do that, Bruce just told me that the financial report is being postponed for the budget meeting. As Lori wasn't feeling well, so
For the budget meeting next week.
that's next week. Thank you.
Approve the agenda with the noted change.
Second.
Seconded, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we have one public comment that I have listed, and if we can find Will, do that. Hello.
Hi, good evening. Good to see everybody. I will be super brief. Primary purpose for me plugging in tonight is just to say thank you to the counselors for deciding to take their time and not make a hasty decision on this proposed private easement down Nenana. By taking this time, you're going to be able to get additional information from the courts and regarding safety that I think will enable the council to just make a better decision in the public interest here. Secondly, I submitted a short follow-up letter yesterday on two key points from the driveway easement hearing. First, regarding the non-applicability of the 120-day rule, and second, regarding the information that's in the record regarding safety. On the 120-day rule, there seemed to be genuine consternation from Mr. Adams and Councillor Ogilvie that if the council didn't make a quick decision on access, it could risk running into the 120-day rule as it relates to the smaller house application. As I explained in my letter, I won't go into too much detail tonight. That's just not the case. The 120-day rule does not apply to easement decisions, it applies to land use decisions. And there's several ways the city can make a decision within the time frame of the 120-day rule to the degree it has concern about this access issue and allow the small house application to be decided. It could either be denied. Previously, the city issued a condition of approval for the larger house regarding access. I'm not sure that really makes sense in this context, but there's several workarounds to that. The second issue I referenced in that letter, I hope you take the time to look at it, is regarding the safety information that's actually in the record on that easement hearing. On the front end of that hearing, there were several general statements made that there's reports in the record regarding geotechnical safety and regarding traffic safety. There are those reports, but they are from the prior application. And in fact, those reports do not apply to the smaller driveway design at all. For example, the geotechnical report in the record from June 30th, 2020 rules out essentially an at-grade driveway. It says, quote, "The primary concern with ruling out the road on grade was that adding weight to the slope by placing fill should be avoided, given that Nenana Avenue right-of-way and tax lot 600 are both located in a known, very slow-moving landslide area," end quote. The prior traffic safety assessments also inapplicable because it's just applying to a different design. The council will recall that that prior design had a big road coming in at a 90-degree angle. The angle proposed by this driveway is not at a 90-degree angle. It has a much steeper slope coming up to it, as you would imagine, if it's not elevated up in the air. The guardrails are in different locations. And as a result, I just respectfully request that the council continue to actually take evidence before making any decision like it sounds like it's decided to do. Generally, though, just thank you to the council for taking the time to make a thoughtful, reasoned decision as it relates to that easement proposal.
First, let's see if there's any hands raised in the attendees. I'm asking if anybody there would wish to speak on a comment. Not, we will move on to our first item because we can. Okay. Our first item is my crew. Here, the Cannon Beach Volunteers. Go ahead, Rick.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Got a little presentation I want to put up there to start off with. First of all, I want to thank all the volunteers that came tonight. They came for a little celebration together. We haven't had a chance to all get together as a group in a very, very long time. And I'm happy to say that this is a great feeling to get us all in one footprint and have a meal together, and then it'll be something that we can spark on in the future. One of the most valuable things we have in this community is our volunteers, and sometimes they become emergency volunteers. And the one things that I want to highlight with this group is the amount of things that are done that are not always recognized. Matter of fact, this crew did not want to be here to be recognized tonight. They all tried to run out of here, and I had to basically stop. So that's our people that we're dealing with here. They give more than they take, and they're always here, but they also don't really like to be recognized. So tonight I'm going to embarrass them just a little bit. And the things that I'm going to talk to them about is just a fraction of what they actually do. But I don't want them to run away. So we're going to talk a little bit about the efforts that they put into what we're doing here. First of all, our CERT team, our community emergency response team, is made up of not only just volunteers, but realistically, everybody in the room who's part of the CERT team, they're also part of the other teams. So they do all the heavy lifting in all the different disciplines. But over the past year, not only did they deal with mass deliveries and vaccination sites, and they did CERT basic training, they brought a whole new team in. They walked the beaches on fireworks, and they did cash sites improvements. They did wayfinding Wednesdays. They weren't always there, but they were always talking about it and assisting us with the barrel program. And then they also they staffed all the 211 lines for the county, and they were very instrumental in that. Two members that we have in the room tonight were basically the leadership team that was really instrumental in that happening. And first I have to thank Sam Steidel. Sam is not only our mayor, he runs a private business, and he also takes care of his family. He's very, very busy with taking care of his family and taking care of us all when it comes to that. And it's hard to do everything well. So we just want to highlight that, Sam, and I wanted to give you a plaque for emergency management. Thank you very much for your effort. Next person I want to highlight.
Special shirt that you guys wear together.
I had a couple people who had the cool shirts on. I got a couple of red and blacks. We got them all over tonight. And we did arrange it a little bit.
Yeah.
Sadie Hawkins dance or something. I like it. Sam, do you have anything you want to say about the CERT team at all?
I want to really thank the team and for withstanding the pandemic and the fact that we were not able to do as much as we always have been wanting to do. Again, let's hope again, we're going to start again this year with immediately to some scenario training and cash site stuff. So we're working on planning that soon. Stay tuned.
Yeah. The next person I want to talk about is Mary Beth Connell. When I first came here to Cannon Beach, the leader of the team had kind of left and went on to different ideas and concepts. And she was, I think she grasped at the opportunity to take it over in the aspect she didn't want it to die. So she wanted it to continue. And through the time that I've been here, we have reorganized the CERT team. She found a great spot for her to be in because she's a super busy person. She has a job in one of the local stores around here. And she's always out reaching out to other people. And she's done an incredible job. She's the CERT community coordinator. And she does all the communications with the CERT team. But she also is one of the busiest people I've met. And she's always moving. So she's like a butterfly and she's got to move quick. So thank you, Mary Beth. Okay, MRC. The Medical Reserve Corps is an interesting thing for me to be a part of because I'm not really a part of it. This is a bigger machine and it serves the entire Clatsop County. It's not just Cannon Beach, even though the name of it's for Cannon Beach. It's actually much bigger than that. And it actually started a little bit before Lila got here, but the energy that she put into it when she got here and then the realization of what happened when she got here is really second to none. You can't have a program that's organized and makes that much progress fast enough. And trust me, I've been trying to prove our worth to get as much things done and support that program to try to measure up to what Lila's been doing. They were amazing during the vaccinations. Not only did they participate in the vaccinations, but they have led the way on how they support that. Recently, we even had vaccinations brought back down to Cannon Beach. And they were also the volunteer support that did that. And so through this whole pandemic in the past 2 years, it's always been a very difficult thing that Lila has been doing, trying to measure how much can we commit, but also how much do we not risk our own people. And throughout that, she's been incredible with keeping her team organized, getting a lot of resources for her team, and even bringing new team members on. So I want to say thank you to Lila Wickham.
Always. So the first thing is, actually, we didn't have the Medical Reserve Corps before we came. And I talked Bob Wayne into being my partner. And I call him my MD Candy. He has a lot of relationships that I don't have because I've only been here since 2014. And that's how we got supplies from Columbia Memorial. That's how we got Dr. Gina to come and talk with us. He has all those connections, and he still writes our scripts for our meds. So, and he's really supportive. Just two other things. We did put in over $100,000 worth of volunteer time in 2020, and that's calculated using a national database. So really proud of our team for that, and we're still doing it. So thank you. I appreciate being appreciated.
Our DART team, Bob Kroll, is not here this evening, but I'm sure he might be monitoring. Bob's been incredible to start the disaster animal response team here in Cannon Beach. It's a model for the entire Clatsop County. The one thing that's interesting about creating models, which I think we are doing in this county, is when you create a model and it works and people start monitoring it and they want to adopt it, it's usually because it's a sound program. And he's created a very, very sound program. He's the heart and soul of it. The one thing that's interesting about Bob is, as much as he gives effort to us and we rely on him, he is the person who actually responds to the police and public works and goes out there. And this picture that I have with him is one night that he actually did something kind of crazy a little bit, as he rescued a wild deer, right? And he just couldn't walk away. And I even talked to him about it. I was like, hey, what should you have done? He's all, well, I could have done a lot of things. I just couldn't walk away. And that just tells the heart about a person like Bob Kroll. And if I'm ever in trouble, I hope he sees me as an animal, a human, because he'll give me that effort. But he's done an incredible amount of stuff, and he's not here tonight, but I'll accept his award for him. And I want to thank the fact that we even have a DART team in this. Next person I want to talk about is Janae. Janae Pierce-Newson is somebody who has been involved in this community for a long time. She's actually one of the people I almost had to hog tie to get here tonight. One thing that's interesting about Janae is she never stands still for a picture at all. And so in order for me to capture a photograph of her face, I have to catch her off guard or something, because she's always running away or she's always grabbing the picture. She never wants recognition. But some of the things that I need to highlight about someone like Janae is, not only is she the person who represents us, the Red Cross in this community, she's brought Red Cross for our community, and they recognize Cannon Beach as a place that they actually get great blood donations. And that's a big deal right now. And it has been ever since the pandemic started kind of working itself out of it. They needed blood, and they always come here and start scheduling big tours around this area. And that's all because of her. But she hasn't just done that. She's done SOL with beach cleanups. She works at the pantry. She's a CERT member. She does Wayfinding Wednesdays with us as much as she can. But the one thing that's very interesting about Janae that I want to let everybody know that she probably wouldn't tell you is, when we started taking people to vaccination clinics, I got calls from these older people's children that were concerned about their family and they needed help. And guess who they told me was always watching after their parents? It was Janae. We actually started shuttling people to the vaccination clinics, and I realized she was racing me to the clinic. And we had our cars loaded with people, and this is a true story. And I realized it's always Janae. And so I want to thank you so much, Janae, for doing all the stuff nobody talks about, but you're always the person that's there. The only problem is, if she's not picking up the phone to help somebody, it's going to be me, and I'm probably going to fail at that mission. So thank you so much.
thank you from the bottom of my heart. This is for all of you guys, because you guys are all the ones that are amazing. So, thank you.
Thank you.
The next group I want to talk about is Sunset Empire Amateur Radio Club. The name alone does not do it justice, okay? I want you guys to realize the type of network that these three members who are represented in our immediate community do, not only for us. I've been just lucky to tap into the concept. I was so desperate to build a better communication system as an emergency backup in this community. And these guys are doing it, and they do it on their own time. But it's not just that, they're inventive. These members have done things, they've never said no, but what they have said is, I don't think your ideas are going to work. Let's try this. And they've been fantastic about that. They've helped build the EOCs up, they've helped build Go Kits, and we're still developing our radio system here, but it's becoming the model for small communities, is this radio club. And it's not just them, they actually network with other areas that are our neighbors around us to the north and the south. And they're starting to really make a name here because of the work that we've partnered together to do. One thing I want to highlight about this is the three members that are sitting here that we're talking about tonight, they all have different specialties in the group. Let's talk about Dale Mosby here. Dale Mosby is, I don't know if you're actually retired. Dale, would you rather be working right now?
I had a lot more free time when I worked.
He had a lot more free time.
The next time he retires, just keep his mouth shut.
That's right. He told us he was going to retire as an engineer from IBM. And guess what happened? He just got a bigger job than he never wanted. But he's been able to basically be the heart and soul for how we should build it. And the best thing about that concept is he didn't just start recently. They've been building these radio concepts, and especially up in the Arch Cape area, which is one of the most important areas for us because it's higher than here in Cannon Beach, and it helps bring our signal in here. But he's been doing that for a while. Now it's an opportunity for us to really work together, and he's really helping the community down in Arch Cape, and he never says no. So I really want to highlight the brains of the operation, Dale Mosby.
I feel like when, things go really wrong, you're gonna be the guy who's got a lot of supplies for us, and I really appreciate that. So anything I can do to help you, I'm happy to do it.
Just keep saying yes. Keep saying yes. The next gentleman I want to talk about is Richard Henry. Richard Henry's been pretty amazing as a trifecta of these gentlemen here, is because Dale gives him a hard time because he's a networker and a marketer. And for all the volunteers who want to run out of here and not say anything, he's kind of like that, but he's not. He makes sure people stay connected. He does the amazing job of actually talking to people and making sure he tells the truth to them and gets them honestly down to the brass tacks of how do we help each other and don't make excuses. And Richard does that, and he does an incredible job. If it wasn't for him, we would not be as connected with so many other people, and the county would not be paying as much attention. So it really does make a difference to have a trained person out there who knows how to do those things, without making everybody mad, and everybody knows his name. And it's pretty incredible. And he lives just south of us here. So Richard, thank you very much. The next person I want to talk about is Bob Wayne. Bob Wayne is being highlighted here during the CERT information, but realistically, Bob has been part of CERT, MRC, and Red Cross, and he's done so much for the community. It's kind of amazing when you actually look around and you have something planned, and he's always the person that shows up. Not only does he always show up, he's frustrated if he's late. And that happened tonight. He's got so many things going on that he gets mad if he's late to one of these things, and he's always there. So it's really hard to put Bob into any one of these categories. But what he did for the CERC is what I want you guys to really realize. When we were having troubles putting our North Tank antenna up and we were having some delays and some slowdowns, guess what he did? He allowed us to use his personal property and mount our equipment on his barn. That was it. Go for it, guys. Make it happen. I was like, oh man, it was one of the most generous things I've ever seen anybody do, realizing that we are now pulling power and putting things into his barn that could burn down. And his children, his horses, live in this barn. He trusted us with his family that much. And so that was one of the most amazing things Bob ever did in this whole process, was he allowed us to use an area of his home to support this program because he believed in it so much, and he's always showing up. So Bob, thank you very much.
I show up a lot, but these guys are amazing to work with. And I think what you need to know about the radio system in your town is its redundancy is remarkable. You have a bunch of citizens who have handhelds that can talk to each other without towers if they go out in an emergency. It's called simplex, and that's just among the certs themselves. You have the MRC, which has a different set of radios. Are they called citizen band? I don't remember.
They're public service. radio.
Public service. There are a couple of, what, maybe $1,000 a piece radio. We have 10 or 15 of them. We rehearse with live leading band about, I don't know, it used to be once, twice a month we would do it, and we make sure that we could talk to each other. Because just turning on your radio is a trick sometimes, and playing with buttons, especially if you have different radios. And then we have a third system, which is your ham radio people. And there's quite a few people in this audience that are now hams. So you have all of these systems can talk around town pretty well, even without a tower. And then we can get out, south to Arch Cape pretty well, and also into Seaside. Occasionally, it depends on sometimes whether the weather's agreeing with us or not. But we have the redundancy without towers, because that's what will go out in a disaster sometimes, to really communicate in multiple ways with different radios. And we practice all three of those radios pretty frequently, just a simple turning on and talking to each other. Rick leads, once a month, one that we go up to our meeting sites and we just chat with each other. But it's just getting that friendliness with the radio that is really important for everybody to have. And I hope that all of you sometime are able to participate with some form of our radios. I mean, I know the police have their version of it also, and that's very separate from us. So, but we have our own channels for all three different types of radio systems, which can communicate. So it's really a very strong system. And thank you for recognizing me, because I don't do it. Yes.
I just want to say something. Thank you for recognizing all of us, but city council, city manager, staff, we really need to recognize the man that actually has helped us get this together. So, thank you, Rick.
What I don't want to leave out though is Robin asked me one day, I hope you're recording all this stuff. And I am. I take a lot of little videos and a lot of little pictures. And last year we were able to compile some of those things. There's a lot of people that are not in the room that help out that we don't see though, and they just show up. So we have this link I'd like to actually show. It's about a minute long, and it's all those little pictures put together. Do I have the ability to do that, or you need to do that for me, Rusty? Thank you. You guys should leave now. If you got
Thanks, everybody. Okay, that was fun. Different. Nice to have a crowd again.
Feel good.
Yeah. I believe Rick is up again.
Am I up first, or is it?
You're next.
Well, we
Okay.
actually moved him down.
I thought that was.
So we got Robert.
That was me.
Is it Robert?
No, I've got cows.
No, Robert.
I can go after, I
Okay.
don't want to leave Bill hanging on the line too long.
I may have forgotten, we moved him towards the end to make sure he had enough time, that I may have forgot to move it in the PDF. My apologies.
Okay.
Okay.
Mine came through.
Plus, where would it be so I can find it?
Just go to the,
Jeff's wife just got back in town, so we want to let him get out.
I had the current City Hall. Hang on, we gotta find the right agenda here.
So I have the second with Robert.
Okay, I got a paper one. Never mind.
Oh,
That was. It's not the one that's posted, because I got mine off the website.
Yeah, it says coastal, that's the.
okay, so then I must not have switched it around. My apologies. Want to go with Robert's next? Sorry.
Okay. We are adjusting the agenda, and so we're going to go with Robert's driveway access easement with Bill. And Jeff.
Yeah, I just want to thank Rick as well. He always does a great job, and I always have to follow him. And yeah, exactly. And I just also want to say thanks for the smell of barbecue. That's what every Southern man loves. But I'm going to hand it off to Bill, but I did want to say the Roberts driveway access easement, Bill will speak to it, that Mr. Wilson for the Roberts has also extended, given his extension to the 120 days. There never wasn't a doubt that, yes, we don't have 120 days on the easement. We have 120 days on a land use decision, which will still happen when I make that decision to approve the plan conditionally or deny it. I'm going to make a decision that will start an appeal, and then we're still gonna have to make a decision in that 120 days. It's been now extended to, as I read it, Bill, 201 days total length. So I'll hand it off to Bill now.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. And as you recall, last week you held a public hearing on the idea of transferring interest in land from the city to the Roberts. That's the easement to allow the Roberts to use Nenana Avenue. At the end of it, the council, had a variety of different perspectives, but I think the one thing they wanted was a little more time to think about this and to get some more direction, whether it's from the Supreme Court, the decision, or some other things. And so reached out to the attorney for the Roberts. Understandably, they felt that this had been going on for some time, and don't want it extended too far, but they also understood that the council's desires. And so what they did was we discussed the idea of the city having enough time to for Jeff to issue whatever decision he makes on the building permit / development permit. And then should someone appeal, the city have enough time to process that appeal, with the idea of a condition saying that before development begins, you've got to get the rights to develop that, however it is. And, presumably that would be the easement at some point down the road. And so, I think we had come to tonight and so they agreed to extend that 120 days so that if in fact an appeal is filed, we can process that. And that hopefully would also allow the Supreme Court to decide whether or not to accept a review on the larger house. So I think when we left last week, as I said, the council expressed interest in more time, and that's where we are now, is that we do have more time. There isn't a press to make this decision tonight. So I think, this isn't noticed as a public hearing. I know Mr. Rasmussen provided additional information, and you could open it up to the applicant or others, or just say, we're gonna set this aside, let the process play out in the Supreme Court, at the permit level and possibly at the circuit court, and come back to this maybe sometime in a few months and see if we're in a better position and have enough information for the city to make a decision. And so that's where we are. And that's sort of my recommendation to you is let's set it aside for a little bit. If you want to provide any direction on what you'd like to see from Jeff or Karen or me in the meantime, that might be helpful. But otherwise, let's set it aside and come back to it in a couple months.
Do you have any idea what the date is? When does the 120 days end?
Well, I think that extends it through probably in June some point. I don't have the specific date, but the way that we had timed it out and I'd done the calendar is that if we would have done by regular meetings, we would not have accomplished it within the 120 days if my decision was appealed. Now, if the decision is made and we expedite some of the planning commission and review process of an appeal if it was appealed, there were ways that we could have done it, but it would have been a special called meetings and things like that. But now with this, we have a little bit of extra time and we've already started the plan review. We will ask for or let the applicant know that we want to see final kind of plans on the driveway. And so we can get that going, make that decision as soon as possible and take it from there.
Any other questions? Well, I think we talked this out quite a bit last meeting. And I agree with Bill's assessment. I think having that little extra leeway of time. Personally, I think what I would consider appropriate would be to try and get the application approved at least within the 120 days and use the extra for the potential of an appeal. That just makes sense. So if we need to talk about it in a month or so, I think that would be a good time.
Yes, we can come back and give you an update at least where we are in our process of plan review. Hopefully we'll be done with that and we're waiting on the engineering and everything, hopefully by then.
Perfect. Any last comments, Bill?
No, it's one more step, sort of a sidestep, but the city will keep moving forward on the other aspects of what's happening down here and keep you informed.
Hey.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Bill.
All right. Good night.
Oops. Bill. Next item, I think, is Jeff again.
Oh, sorry.
Barbecue on the mind.
Barbecue.
TSP.
TSP update. Okay, so we'll be updating the webpage this next week and announcing the next PAC and open house meetings for TSP. I expect next week because I think the date is the 21st. I'm not sure. I'll check that, but it'll be out. We'll post that and announce that out to do a blast for everyone. We'll have another 3 or 4 week online open house is what we're launching. So we'll get that message out to everyone. I think it starts on the 21st of this month. And so it'll run for, like I said, 3 or 4 weeks. And so we'll have a couple opportunities to kind of get that word out and get it out in the bulletin. Anything else or?
Great. Hey. Where we're going, we're rolling. RV park, Karen, I bet. RV park resort.
Oh, RV park.
I'm going by this list now.
Yeah, I realized what I did. I changed the agenda, but I didn't change it in the packet. So the agenda that was posted and distributed was the right one, but the one in the packet had things in a different way. My apologies.
make sure I wasn't agenda hopping like I did last week. All right, so what I'm going to talk to you tonight about is allocating funds for the RV park to replace some roofing at the building there. So while budgeting the 21-22 Cannon Beach RV Park Resort allocated funds to perform repairs on the original cedar-shaped roof that was in place. That was primarily over the lodge office building area. And during the wet and windy winter months, staff at the RV resort discovered a substantial leak in the roof. Further investigation of this issue revealed that the overall condition of the cedar shakes was worse than first believed. Additional inspections have been conducted, and the RV park solicited 3 estimates for total replacement of the roof. The roof has come to the end of its life cycle, useful life cycle, and the original scope of repair no longer meets the needs for the RV resort. Moving forward with the limited repairs initially outlined would be waste of resources and likely far more expensive in the long run due to the ongoing deterioration of the shakes. The RV resort would like to match both the color and style of the recently re-roofed mini storage structure just to the east of the lodge office building. This is an architectural composition roof, and the estimated cost is $70,500. This money is available in the existing RV Park Reserve Fund under paved park grounds, but must be reallocated for the new purpose. Recommendation is that staff recommends the council authorize the reallocation of these funds in the amount of $70,500 to complete the necessary roof repairs.
And on a side note, this actually isn't a motion, it's just a consensus.
I guess I'm just curious, I am so befuddled by the costs of things nowadays. But that seems dramatically excessive. Is that just materials and labor now?
It's primarily materials. Believe it or not, this is better than what you would see on the cedar shake
I know
roof
that.
because what's happened with cedar right now. But roofing materials as a whole has been affected by this supply chain issue as well. The bids obviously would have been a lot more if we tried to retain the cedar shingle.
Karen, didn't they get 2 prices and you got 1? So this is based on 3
They
prices.
had 2 bids and because this wasn't under the city's, procurement process, I still ask that they get 3 bids so that we can have a good competitive comparison. And they had received 2 bids. We had a roofer that had roofed the recycle building and the park shed building is going to be re-roofed. We had them give them a bid and all 3 bids were very comparable. And they went with our third contractor that had gone out.
Okay.
Sam, I just have a quick question about, how come we don't have to do a competitive bid?
They don't have to publicly bid it based on the dollar amount. It's under escape lodgings process. Instead of the city, they take care of the facility for us. So they're under a bit of a different type of a procurement than the city would be. But we still ask them to get 3 competitive bids so that the city can make sure that they're getting a good price comparison.
All right, thank you, Karen.
Yes.
Okay, I guess to go.
The consensus?
I haven't heard anything negative. Okay, thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
Sea turtles forever topic. That came up at a comment. So Bruce, do you have any?
Yeah, let me give you a little bit of history that I know. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, I had a conversation with them and I put $5,000 in the budget. And there was discussion at the council level and prior to that, they'd gone through the community services program, community services grants. And so the direction was that they apply under that program and not have a line item in the budget. And so that's what we've done for a couple of years. Jen, do you know I think somebody told me that they were applying through community services.
Yeah, they did apply for a parks grant.
Okay.
They turned in their information because they weren't sure what would happen, so they wanted to make sure that they'd at least apply for something.
Right, and so there was some discussion going around, and then Sam, you had asked to have this put on the council.
I'm curious how the councilors feel about funding cleaning up our beach.
Well, I was supportive of it before when this initially came up. And then through the budget season, it's the best recollection that I have is that the consensus was is that they would have rather seen them apply through the community grant. I feel the opposite of that, that I would favor putting in a line item for the beach cleanup that they do. But I just wanted to voice my support for that.
Well, and Jen, how much did they ask for when they applied for the grant?
Just over 10,000.
10,000, so it's different than 5,000. Do we have a little more information on that? What would they do for 10,000?
They would use, they have like a sifting system, it's mostly manual. And they do a good portion of the beach.
Well, I know they could only focus on over in the north end. That was really time consuming for them, as I recall.
Yeah.
And they didn't get to do all that they'd like to do. So I was just wondering if they could let us know what that might entail for 10,000.
My sense is you're buying square footage. I mean, how much can they do for X amount of dollars? So getting them more, they can do more square footage on the beach. That's my only sense of it, because I've actually gone down and helped them, and it's hard work, but it's effective.
It is.
But again, it's just hours and space.
And maybe more people.
Yeah, and they could, if you could hire more people, you could work more efficiently, I guess.
I think what I understood, there's a lot of action around Nicola Creek because there's a lot of movement there and water going up on the side. So they did spend a lot of time, but it's because there's a lot of material there. And I think they tried to go a little bit north from there, but you are correct. I mean, however, more people that they have, the more teams that they have, the more area that they can cover.
And I talked to Mark once, I think it was a couple of years ago, but he was saying that he was able to reach out more when he had facility to do that. I think at that time he had a person helping him, and that's where they got some corporate grants from folks in Portland. And they came down and did a big swath in front of Haystack Rock. So the more he can do, the more he can sell what he's doing.
Well, and it'd be nice for him to know that he could count on that and make plans. So I would like to see it go through the city because that would also give the grants maybe a little more money also.
Well, I could see it being added to the HRAP budget. I mean, possibly not, but it is something that it's within that.
I think we had a place, and I forgot where we put it last time, but it was a separate line item, and it was just for that use. I would think about before I would put it into HRAP. I'm not sure if that's exactly where it belongs, but it could go there.
It's just an idea I have at the moment.
But
I
there would,
don't care one way or the other. I just wanted to voice my support for it.
yeah. So at this point, if you all give us direction, and you don't have to give us a number tonight because we can talk at the, although we're not supposed to talk about specific numbers at the meeting on the 16th, but if you have a number, then that's what you'll see in the preliminary budget. But that's probably a couple of months away, so we can have this conversation again if you want to talk about numbers.
I guess I'd like to hear somebody from the committee, either Deb, because I know she's on it now, or Mark, or somebody come in and talk about what they want to do with the money.
Yeah.
And then I guess I'm a little bit concerned about adding things onto line item budgets in the budget without some kind of parameter as to what we're looking at in terms of when do we want to put a nonprofit organization into our budget and when don't we? What are the requirements or the parameters for that? Because we just.
Because the library is there.
The library is there and now this will be there, then what's to stop other organizations from saying, oh, we don't want to go through the community grants. We want to know that we have money. So we need to think about some parameters for that.
I think that the library obviously has a direct impact on the quality of life in the city. And while the beach is not technically city property, it's OPRD, that because they're cleaning the beach in front of us, that might be a distinction, from what some of the other possible.
But you can talk your way around anything when it comes to nonprofit organizations. And I'm not saying it's a bad organization or anything, but I think the city needs to have parameters for when we do this.
Okay.
Yeah, my recollection is that the reason it was a line item the first time is they were too late to get their application in for the community grants.
Yep.
And so he said, well, okay, one time. And the consensus was that no, in the future, they would apply through the community grants. My concern is, well, and they've asked for 10,000, everybody asked for more than they expect to get. So I don't know what their expectation is. My bigger concern is that I don't see a plan. I don't see a proposal. I don't see how many hours will be spent. I don't see any way for accountability of how the money's spent. And I don't see anything other than maybe it's tonnage or poundage of what we collect as a result. I would need a whole lot more information to make this a city budget item. Go to somebody outside of the city to do work that we're not really aware when. It's volunteer time, they go at certain times. It's like giving money that we have no control over. True, that's very common with the community grants. But we know their programs, we know the good cause it's going for, and so we grant that. Seems like Sea Turtles Forever, maybe in that same category. Seems like a good thing for the community at large. It's outside our purview, public works. I mean, it's on the state lands. So I guess I'm just uncomfortable putting this in the city budget without the checks and balances and controls and reporting that I think we would require. So at this late date, I would prefer to see it stay in the community grant program and then come back and try to show us, convince us that why it should be a city program.
Well, I guess, Mike, I really appreciate your concerns and I wouldn't have any problem asking for that type of, justification for our money. I think it's like Sam said, the more money they get, the more square footage they can do. And I guess what I'd just like to see is them get a chance to do that so that they can demonstrate what they can do. And, they've been doing it now for the last 2 or 3 years. Is that correct?
Longer than that.
Much longer.
Yeah.
I'd say 7. I'm trying to think. Yeah.
I think they were doing it for the beach bill when we were doing that.
Before that too. Yeah.
Their first community grant was in 2013, 14.
Yeah.
Then they should be able to bring us a report as to.
And they brought us reports endless times. Mark's been here several times and talked to us. I've seen how they do it. It's not a effort that's going to change much other than by getting more people to work it. Because it's a very hands-on system. If they had a mechanized system and they started growing, that would be different. Then I'd be expecting more, but right now it's pretty much the same stuff. It would be nice to have some numbers.
Yeah.
That shows, how many pounds, and I believe Ed mentioned pounds last meeting, how many they got last year. So I know that's pretty evident. It would be nice to have somebody come and make a presentation.
Yeah, I know the library makes a report every year, so
Yeah,
it would-
if we.
wouldn't be unreasonable for us to ask for a report.
No, especially if it's a line item, and I have no problem with a line item or the grants. The only thing is that the granting system tends to have priorities. So where would this lay in the priorities and how that gets all measured? I'm just gonna have another kind of funding possibility. I don't know. Is it possible to just outright hire them as a contractor? And just say, we want you to do this chunk of each?
I think that it's possible. I don't know if they have the documentation that they need, W-9s and all the things that they would have to have for us to be able to pay them. And I don't, so yes, I believe that we would be able to do that.
It still have to be in the budget somehow, but it would come out of something that might already have, like Public Works or Parks or something like that. It would just be a contract we make with somebody. That might be another way to look into it, hourly or whatever. I also would question if we gave them like the 5,000 back as a line item, could they still ask for something in the community grants to amend that? There wouldn't be anything that would restrict them from asking that I know of.
When you're going for a grant, though, they ask what other things are you applying for? And I think it would weigh differently if they knew that it was already, they were already receiving some money.
Yeah.
Maybe not, but.
It just depends on how we feel about the.
And with the proposal or the question that you just asked, I think I would rather do it as a outright grant. Because I don't know, like sometimes he has a lot of people, sometimes he doesn't. And that would also, for him to get paid, we would have to verify that this much space had been done. And I don't think that they're trying to, get money that they haven't earned. But in taking that particular step, that adds steps to us. And then it becomes a possibility that somebody said, well, I could do that too. So I think it's the simplest way to go. And because of their workforce kind of doing this sometimes, that we just, there's just a grant.
Line items or community?
I'm sorry, that's up to you. I mean, I really don't have a strong feeling one way or the other on that.
I guess I'm a little preference to the line items because that gives them a sense of commitment.
Sure.
For at least a few years down the road until the council changes their mind. But at least it's something. So that would be the way I would go.
Yeah. And, you're saying that does make sense because what he wants is some continuity and people that you can call on and that sort of thing. So that may be a chance to get some more consistency.
Let me ask you a question there. To go to the line item, we expect like any department to come and make a presentation, showing us how the money will be spent and detail their expenses and their proposal, like new roofs, et cetera. So if you go that route, we've got to have them make presentations to the city to justify the budget they're asking for.
That goes with the line. You become part of the city budget, so you have to present. No, I agree with that. Okay. I think. Aaron. So a line item, we don't know quite how much yet, so maybe.
And now I'm kind of lukewarm on it myself. But like I say, I really want to know how.
Yeah, if we were voting on it, I'd be opposed to a line item today. Go for the grant, but then maybe I can be swayed if I saw reports, accountability, the finances, how it was being spent, like you would have any other department do. And I just haven't seen that yet. I'm not saying it's not out there, I just haven't seen it. And I'm not sure in the time between now and we start putting our budget together, which is another month.
Next week. Actually, it started. I mean, we're well into it now.
So again, you're right, we're already into budgeting. And I would just prefer to see if that's where the council wants to go and say, we will seriously consider that for next year, but not wait until the budget's already being cranked out to make that decision.
It would seem no matter which way we go, there has to be a contact with them and say, either stay with the grant process, or you need to come to council at some point and, offer a proposal of so many square feet for so many dollars, we would do this a general area, that sort of thing. So before we can make that approach, I think we need to have some sort of direction from you.
Well, my direction would be, as Mike stated, to have them make a proposal. If they're willing to do that during the budget process, I think that would be preferable.
Okay. And in order to have a starting point, what we'll do is we'll ask them for a dollar amount. Because it's very hard for us to do a budget if we have a zero someplace, then you decide to fund something.
Completely agree with that.
Okay, so we'll ask them for a number, and it'll be their number, and then they'll come during the times that the departments are doing their presentations. And they will come and give you the information. And then at some point, you'll be making decisions on a lot of numbers. And that's one that you'll decide on, not necessarily the moment they're sitting here, but it'll be part of your discussion using the information they gave you.
That would be my hope.
Okay.
And they've had some good experience with doing beautiful presentations.
Yeah.
So I think they have backup to do.
Okay. All right. Very good. We got
Does
it.
that automatically make them a line item then in the budget?
Not until you say there's a line.
Okay.
Well, that's what happened before, is that we had, I think, given tentative support for the same thing amongst the council. But then once it came to ratifying it through the budget, that the entire budget committee, it didn't go that way.
Yeah. But I think from a practical standpoint, for this to work, what would happen based on this discussion is that we would ask them for a number and it would be put in the budget. And then it would be also decide to stay, increase, decrease, take out after the presentation.
And it needs to be clarified how this relates to their application for a community grant.
When does that,
Parallel, or is it just one or the other?
I think it closes on the 12th. For community grant.
March,
April.
April, yeah.
April 19th. not the 12th.
So see, they'll need to make that decision before we've made a budget decision. Again, that's the reason I'd say let it go through as a
Why don't we do
grant, community
this
grant
earlier?
program now, but start earlier next year to get them in at the beginning of the budget sequence.
I think we told them the same thing last year. Start earlier.
Yeah, we did, didn't we?
Yeah.
Well, Mike, you bring up a good point. I don't have an answer to respond to it other than I personally, I'm sorry, Sam, I just finished this thought up, is that I personally don't mind if they were to be able to apply for a community grant and also receive money as a line item from the budget.
So I pulled up the community grant timeline. So that's when they're due, but the committee will be making their decision on June 8th.
Oh, okay, good.
So, because they'll do presentations on May 26th. And then they turn in their preliminary numbers, and then they're going to do a work session to discuss the preliminary number worksheets. So they're going to make their decision in June.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll have the budget well before that,
Mhm.
and then we can inform the committee whether to pull that, adjust their numbers to fit it. Okay, so work fine?
What you guys want?
Okay, Bruce, let's do that.
I missed.
Was what you said.
Sure, from Ashley, where I said, okay, so I'll contact them.
Okay, now which list am I on here? Okay,
Cows now.
now we're at cows.
It really excites Brandon.
I just love to say it.
Cows.
Yeah, please.
So similar information that we had last time that we met. What I've learned between this time and last time that we met was the program actually started in 1986. It started before, I thought, in the mid 90s, and they used hardware from the Trojan nuclear plant. And then it was updated later on. And so realistically, when we got to the point in 1997 is that they actually got equipment from the Umatilla military base. And so it was updated. And so when we talked about our 42 Buick or whatever we were talking about last time, it's actually not that challenging. I met with a bunch of people from the Wayland kind of distributors and stuff like that. And we were able to meet with them and have them review the system. And I've also spent a little bit more time talking to Cannon Beach Electric, who've been maintaining the system, where I got a lot more historical knowledge on it. And in 2013, actually, the hardware and software was updated. And I found out that Cannon Beach actually supported the system at that time in 2013 by giving them a $5,000 donation for replacing batteries. So the city has actually already supported this program. What also came out of there was a timeline. We were able to find out a timeline of when things were updated. What does it mean? We were able to kind of look at the system and say, it's not that dank of a problem to fix. It is actually an easier problem to fix. And the people that we met from Wayland looked at all the stuff and said, there's brand new equipment that fits right in here that kind of works hand in hand. So when we get to 2022, the things that we really need to start figuring out is realistically, first of all, do we look at the system holistically as in all of the 5 in Cannon Beach and the 2 in Arch Cape? And I talked to the fire chief, and if you guys have any questions for him, I'd be happy, to make sure that he gets a chance to answer for that. But what are we going to do from this point on? And one of the things that came out was to make sure that I get decent numbers for you guys to make some decisions on. So this is just the Cannon Beach sirens, but if we had to replace all the batteries right now, and the batteries are recommended to be replaced every 3 to 5 years. The batteries are fairly expensive, and there's usually 4 large batteries in each unit. So it's about $8,000 to replace all the batteries in the Cannon Beach towers. The number for the radios and the speakers really depends on if anything needs to be replaced. And so the replacement costs for those things are a little bit of money, but usually we don't have to because the system is working. And we found that out in January that the system works. The radios and the speakers work. It's just, are they working well? Some of these speakers that are stacked on top of each other that look like they have 3 to 5 layers, they're actually called cells. And so it's 3 to 5 different speaker systems. And so we really have to go through those speakers to find out which ones are working and which ones are not working. And then there's 3 of them specifically in the city that do need to be replaced. And there is replacement speakers at the Arch Cape Fire Station that simply just haven't been added to the system. And we could utilize those as long as they're working, but we haven't had a chance to get everything tested.
There is going to be a fee if we have to start swapping out speakers, and that would be a crane cost. And then the annual inspection that we're basically looking at is about $5,000 to look at these in the future as annually inspection, where someone would actually go through the entire system every year. So realistically, that number is very manageable, especially once you start the maintenance project and you make sure all the equipment works. You swap out whatever doesn't work and you replace all the batteries. Then you put yourself on an annual maintenance program and then a replacement program as necessary. Some of the upgrades on the right screen there called the voice modules. If I want to add things to this program, which I would recommend adding a few things to it. Right now, the system is basically just designed to do a test and to do an alarm. That's it. I would want to have the system to do a few other things. And one of the things that I wanted to do is I want to link it to a central dispatch in Seaside. And going through the process of talking to what they're doing, we're having a meeting next week with Day Wireless and Seaside Dispatch. And believe it or not, I don't think we need to do what they're doing as much. They have a software that's very expensive that costs them $5,000, about $30,000 to invest in, and then $5,000 a year to keep going. And it does so many things that we are never going to need. So I don't think we need that software. What we do need, though, is be able to link it with radios. And so we'd have to use our teams, and we'd have to get a repeater radio frequency that would be able to get to Seaside area. And that would be the only thing that we would really need to do that with. So we'd have to add some radio hardware to it. And we'd have to improve the voice modules. What we can do is on each one of those speakers, what they do is they transmit down on a radio frequency from either the fire station or dispatch, and it triggers whatever voice module you want it to do. You want it to an alarm, you want it to give an audible recording of, stay away from the beach, it's high tide, it's king tide season, whatever you wanted it to do, you would change out the voice modules to be able to do it. And that's the best way for this system to work. So that's kind of the cost of the maintenance. And it's not annual maintenance, but it would be maintenance to get the system up and running, and then the upgrades. We have recommendations, but I would love to have a conversation before we just talk about recommendations. And I would love for you guys to take this opportunity to talk to Chief Reckman and what he's learned from his board, and then how we can partnership on this. And it would be a chance for us to pause right here and to let you guys ask us some questions so we can move forward.
How would you initiate an alarm, and how would you determine what voice module or siren to utilize for each alarm?
That's done with a controller right now. So that's done with a controller at the fire station right now. Is that right? Mark?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, you go for it.
No, you're right. Right now it's done with the controller, and we're not using all the controller board. That's one of the things we found out when we met with them, is there's a lot more capacity in that controller board that we can add more pre-messages. Right now, there's only 2 messages in it, and one is run to higher ground, and the other is the test. And so we can add more messages to that controller board. And so we can have pre-programmed messages to stay off the beaches or whatever else we want. We can put wildfire things in there. We can do different things we wanted with it. But I think one of the biggest things we learned from when we were going through it was, as Rick said, we know that some of the speakers need to be replaced. They don't work. The one down on Orford doesn't work. The one first and large needs to be replaced. We have those down Arch Cape to be replaced. But in those stacked of speakers, we need to get them back down here and actually test how many of those speakers are actually working. There may be some of those speakers that are only working 2 or 3 of them instead of all 5 of them.
Other questions?
I do.
Yes.
Do you have the ability to just broadcast?
Just a message without sirens that we made?
Yes.
Well, that's what we're talking about, making the pre-recorded messages that we could just broadcast. We tried, and we could right now through the radio. Unfortunately, right now, with the way it's set up, you would have to set the alarm off and then you could use the radio. But even with using the radio, with the terrain, that's one thing he said about January, the issue we had in January. with the terrain, that voice does not travel well through the system. And so it's much better how the pre-recorded message is in the towers.
Okay.
But we can program it to where, we can do that now, but it does have that alarm that goes off. But do you guys get the, and I had to get educated on this. When you send a verbal signal over the PA, it goes from one radio to another to the speaker. And so that's why they recommend is putting the voice that you want at the speaker. And then you just send it a radio signal and it triggers number 4, which says whatever you want it to say. You can do a PA and that's one of the options that I want to be able to have to reprogram it, but we can use a PA, but it's better to put pre-recorded voices at the speaker locations.
I remember that being one of the big challenges when they were originally doing the testing, because Al would get kind of an echo. Within the way it was presented when he spoke. And it was quite confusing. I remember that.
Yeah, so it's fixable and we just got to tell them what we want to do. And that's one thing I learned over the past, I'd say 60 days of really trying to research as much as possible. These are fixable challenges that they have and they use these systems all the time. We just had to be specific about what we wanted to use the system for and how, and then they immediately started solving the problem for us. The real challenge we have is really how do we get out of this area to get to a dispatch center? And that's actually more challenging because we have to get a repeater up on a high point in order to get to wherever the dispatch center is. The other parts are actually pretty simple. We could actually upgrade this system and get it just maintained and do exactly what it's doing now for very little cost realistically, and then figure out the best way to grow it. But also with that concept of growing it, I realized I don't need to grow it like they're doing it in other places because it's really not something we're ever going to use. So there's some software things that I don't think we need, which were bigger cost items. So that was one of the advantages of taking the time to learn how the system, what capabilities it can do.
It also sounds like more of a preferable way of getting it up and running so that we can use it the way we're used to using it. And then we can find out what are the better connective methodologies and, take your time, like you say, to get to the best part. But getting it up and running and functional 100% the way we're used to it, I think it's perfect.
Yeah, so it's really just, working with Mark and the fire district. I think they have a plan to support it. And it's really a question, really comes down to how do we want to move in the future as a united front between our two agencies, and do you even want to do that?
I think this is such good news. Number one, that you've decided to work together and that you've pieced it out to see that it isn't overwhelming. And it's encouraging.
You mentioned it would be difficult to get it to the dispatch center. Why do you need it to get it to the dispatch center?
One of the things that I want to do, and it's something that we can work on in the future, but one of the things I want to do is I want to have that fail safe. So to rely on anybody to do anything at maybe a volunteer fire department that's not constantly staffed, or a police department that doesn't, maybe the only person that's working that night's out on patrol. To really have a system that you can rely on, you need to have somebody at a dispatch center who can give the messages when nobody's at the helm. And I think it's important to have that because my vision isn't just Cannon Beach. It's really, if we were able to network something with the coastal communities here through a dispatch center, then we have a chance to be communicating as one group on the whole coast. And there's a lot of scenarios of natural disasters that affect small areas, but the majority of the natural disasters that are going to affect our area are regionalized. So as long as we have a consistent regionalized plan, that would be the importance for me to do it. Because right now Seaside and Earhart are already together at that dispatch center. Warrenton are building their system and they are also interested in making sure that it's part of the dispatch center. And if we do that and in conjunction with Arch Cape, now you've got all these communities that are in a line that are all at least at minimum networked with the dispatch center. And it makes us have a much more consistent ability to have resiliency and emergency management processes to be put out.
So the dispatch center would have what capability then to be able to would they have like a pre-recorded voices themselves and they just press a button and it would go out to all the sirens or what?
And that's the standardized part about it. So let's say all the systems had their own testing, whatever they wanted out for a test. And on a Wednesday at 11 o'clock, all the systems were tested at Wednesday at 11 o'clock. Some communities use an air raid, some communities had a voice and we had our cows. It doesn't matter. Because it's at the sirens that the actual voices are happening. But at least everybody would know, oh, okay, if you go to the coast in Clatsop County at 11:30 Wednesdays, they're going to do a test wherever you are. And that would be the benefit of how they would be able to do that.
What about an emergency, an actual emergency? How would the dispatch center be involved?
They would push a button.
It'd be the same thing we are, instead of doing a fire station, they would be able to do it from there.
Okay.
Yeah, instead of us waiting, for example, when we got the call on June 15th, we got a call right around 5 o'clock in the morning. Dispatch started calling and notifying individual police departments and fire departments that there was a tsunami coming. They're the ones who woke people up mostly. And that's the kind of backup that I think is important for a system like this. You have to be able to network it in to where that's going to happen.
So they would press a button and the sirens then would go.
No, it would be something that would be less specific. But if there was something that was an immediate need, like a local event happened and you had 20 minutes to get to high ground, they would be the ones that would be activating the alarms. It really isn't us. Because we're getting to high ground. What are they doing? They're dispatching people and pushing a button to say, get to high ground.
So would they have the same pre-recorded voices that we would have?
Ideally, we would eventually work on standardization. And that's just a concept right now. But it doesn't stop us from leading the way on that. What are the recordings that we would use? Do I expect other people to take the cows on? I don't think so. But if they would like to, I'm sure they would.
No, we want to be alone on the cows.
Yeah.
Alone with our own cows.
Cows and bunnies, that's
right. That's our thing.
Your heart could use the elk call.
Yeah.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
Be careful.
Proving that our system is up and running and getting it really solid again would really help, I think, regional program in getting grants. Because once you have something, I think it's easier to get grants for improving it than it is to start a new one.
That's for sure. And right now, it's just not a regional concept. The one thing that I'm learning about this entire area is that we're getting better together. And so the more we start bringing people to the conversations, whether it's regional 911 dispatching or this type of emergency procedures, or getting people at emergency management on the same voice, identifying the same risks and starting to put things together, those things start gaining energy and we start getting more grants. We start getting more things giving us attention, which is improving our resiliency in this area. But you're right. Right now, the state doesn't really offer grants to these areas because it's not coastal wide. They don't use them everywhere. But if we can get them everywhere here in Clatsop County, then that's something.
Yeah. Great, guys. I'm glad to hear that Wayland really helped us figure that out.
They did. They made it simple. The anxiety of what is this going to be looking like? And can we even replace it? They came out and they said, oh, this is easy. And it's actually stuff that they put modern technology and put it right together. And I'm like, okay, this isn't that scary.
good news.
Yeah, great.
Do you have any marching orders for city manager for us to move forward on?
Bruce, tell him to keep going.
Get going.
Thanks, boss.
Thank you, gentlemen. There may be follow-up discussions from budget standpoint or something like that.
Okay. Next item is the evaluation process. You can hook up Ashley for this one.
She's on workshop nights, there's 2 other cities she's working with, so I said that I'll go ahead and take it, and essentially, if you feel they're ready to go ahead, I recognize for the simplicity to use the same form, same process as what we did last year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll be able to get things done so that we can do it around the April 5th meeting, or if there's meeting before, but probably we could do for April 5th if you want to do an executive session at that time.
Okay. Very good. Last one is prepared food tax discussion.
I'm gonna wear my Ashley hat for that one too. The vote was finalized at 379 in favor, 375 against. The measure passed. The tax is imposed effective July 1st. There was a challenge, and that challenge, this did not move forward. And so, while this does not require any action on the part of commission to say, or on part of council to say that, you know, all right, we're certifying the results or something like that. This is to essentially to do a report to you and for city staff to continue on with the process to effectuate the tax in accordance with the terms of ballot measure 4-210. Take care of both sides of this.
How's the work going with the consultant and interviewing the various restaurateurs?
She's done quite a bit. I mean, she's a real go-getter. So, Jen, do you know how many she might have reached out to yet?
I am not sure, but I know that she's going through the list, but in the meantime, people are calling her at the same time. And so she's answering anyone who calls her while still going down the list. And it sounds like she's made a good round, because Lori will say, hey, I know that Holland spoke with Bald Eagle, or, you know, so I know that she's been definitely making her way.
Good.
And by the April 5th meeting, I'm sure we can say that, well, let me think. Do you want us to come back and give you the results of that discussion? Or would you like us to work with the fire department to develop a recommendation for a grant program so that you could adopt the grant program at the beginning of April? So we've got April, May, June for people to get things done. I suggest we do it sooner rather than later.
I prefer your latter suggestion.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm saying that we should, if we can get you all to approve a grant program like April 5th, we have 3 months, or they have 3 months to get systems put in place.
Right. We would need to know, I would need to know, before making a decision on the grant program, how equitable the consultant has found all of the point of sale systems to be. So in a sense, I think there's a conjunction there with what her findings are.
Oh, sure.
How she's worked with things to what the grant is.
Yeah, all right, so then what we'll do is at the April 5th meeting, we will do a presentation on the results. And then council can give us direction on how you want to do the grant.
Well, I would bring a proposal for the grant at the same
Okay, that's what I
time.
was at, okay.
Yeah.
But with that,
Yeah.
so it'll come, there will be a report on the consultant's findings. And that'll be the basis for the discussion on what the grant might be.
Okay.
So you'll get both pieces.
Okay, yeah, if we can do that at the same time.
We're just trying to get
timelines.
Yeah, we can.
Perfect.
I had a question on the votes. After the recount, we ended up winning by 6 votes, but this only shows us winning by 4 votes. I know this is the certification of, I guess, that particular night, but doesn't say anything about the recount.
I think this was actually created back in December, and then, so that was my.
Oh, I see.
didn't get it updated on that, because this was something we were gonna send to council after the vote, but then because of the recounts and I missed updating that, my
Okay.
apologies.
All right,
And
yeah,
the lawsuit and everything we didn't get the paperwork on until very recently, even though it was allegedly decided a long time ago. So you're just seeing it now.
Well, I guess if there's no other questions for that topic, we're done. So,
I do have a question.
okay.
Bruce, when Herbworks was doing their presentation, they said that there were 10 people that they interviewed for an hour each. Can you tell me who those people were?
I can't, but I could find out.
That was one of them.
Nancy was one?
Yeah. I think there was some other people on the council, weren't there?
Yeah, I think I was one of them, but didn't recognize it as an interview.
Yeah, I didn't quite either. I thought, I looked, when she said that, I think I thought, well, I think I was one of those. And there were some on the planning commission, I think.
What was it about?
Oh, she just, I can barely even remember what the interview was, but basically asked me a little of the history of the village and what did I consider the village and, demographics and I don't even remember all the questions. They were pretty general questions.
Yeah, like what are your expectations from this?
Well, I just thought it'd be interesting to know who the people were, because I think that I'd like to hear that there were residents that were not council people that were interviewed and who they were. So could you provide a list?
Yeah, no, I've always said I'll provide it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I think that means we're in good order. So if anybody else have anything?
Is that before, this is good on the order? Okay, I do have a couple of things. One is that we said we'd bring information back regarding the food pantry modular. And what we found is a unit that is roughly the same size as the one that's there, new, is approximately $300,000. So that's probably, that might make some sense to have a new unit. That leads to the next question as to whether or not, if we're going to have a new unit, some of you had discussed maybe there's another location for the food pantry. And so if there's any direction in terms of that, but we're not trying to workshop this tonight. It was just some information. And if you want to give us some other sorts of direction on any kind of a report you might want in making this decision.
I do not have any other suggestions for a location. So if I were to have a recommendation, it would be to use the existing site. I believe Sam's recommendation at the last meeting has merit. I don't have any information to update that.
Yeah, we've looked and looked and looked for all kinds of reasons for other things. The only site that comes on the top of my head is the RV park, and whether there's space over there or not, that's questionable. But getting a new unit that could be a unit that might be movable in the future gives us more flexibility in that realm. I'm also thinking it might be nice to at least have a representative of the food pantries management to have a chat with them at some point.
And I contacted Barb, and Barb is listening.
Okay, Barb's listening. Uh-oh.
Barb is, Barb has got her ears on, yes.
So but in the future, when we have some ideas of what the differences are, so knowing how much it's cost to revamp the building that's there, knowing how much it might cost to put in a comparable building. Yeah.
I guess we need to know how urgent the repairs are
Pretty urgent.
and how thorough the repairs need to be if there's any certainty that we would replace that building anyway. So trying to balance out the repair work with, and in order to minimize throwing money away.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be helpful to come up with a figure like that or some rationale. And maybe if we can't get another replacement building for 3 or 4 years, then yeah, we need to do the repairs. But if there's a possibility of putting it in next year, maybe blue tarps are the way to go, but.
Yeah, well, the good news is it's not leaking today. So just be able to go from there. And we can bring some information about lead times on buildings. We can have discussions, internally as to what are there any other possible locations talk to the company, how difficult if we had to set it up in that location and wanted to move in the future, how hard would that be? Those kind of things. So we can try to get that information for you. I don't know if it can be the April workshop, but we'll do what we can to make that.
Other thing, talk to the,
Go ahead, Sam, and then I'll ask
talk to
the question.
the management. Barb, and ask them to consider what would be a more efficient building. You know, if it that shape or another shape or smaller, but more efficiently used, things like that.
Sure.
I still, I guess, would have concerns about, would we be able to put something else there, even if it was a modular? That wouldn't foul of the restrictions against digging,
I think, well,
plumbing, power, that sort of thing, all required.
with the project, there is going to have to be some digging. We won't be able to avoid that. It's just we will have an archaeologist on site and we will plan it ahead of time so everybody knows what's going to be happening. I think that there's, I have to talk to Jeff. I think there's some restrictions on the type of buildings that you can put up, and I don't know if modular is necessarily something that is allowable in that zoning. So we'll have to check that.
Isn't it a modular building now?
Yeah, but I don't know if anybody gave it much thought when it was put in. If we're gonna do it, I just want to make sure that it's okay to do it, or if there's a waiver or something that the council can give.
Is it still zone institutional?
Yes.
That probably gives us some leeway.
Yeah.
How dire are the repairs? How needed are they? I mean, is waiting going to be a real problem?
Karen?
The roof has been temporarily patched. I think the biggest concern is whenever you're doing roofing with our supply chain delays, that if you made the desire to go forward, you just have to consider that lead time to get all the roofing, and you can't put a roof on at the time. So that they push you to go to the next year. And then the siding where all the dry rot is, we actually have the conduit exposed there. And so if we dig into that to repair it, we don't know what other can of worms we might open. So we can not do anything for a while and see if the roof leaks again this winter.
So it would be good to be able to have some kind of a decision about all of this by the summer, before the summer, so you can do it during the summer.
Much sooner.
Because if you're going to order roofing materials, even if we ordered it now, most
Yeah,
likely we put the roof on maybe in August or September based on the lead times.
Yeah, you want to do something by the next rainy season.
Mhm.
You know, the siding is getting worse, the roof, who knows? But we should be moving forward with either another building coming in or repairs on that building.
Yeah, it looks bad over there on the north
Yeah,
west side.
you can kind of put your finger through it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so we'll bring that back onto a upcoming workshop. Next thing is that we sent you a email saying that after the 12th, we will be doing in-person meetings in this room without masks. Masks will be optional if you want to wear a mask, or anybody does. We're going to be allowing public in. And actually, the budget meeting will be the first meeting for that. But you remember how big a crowd we usually draw for
Yeah.
that, so I don't think it'll be much of a difference to most of us. But anyway, so we're going to go ahead and start that, and that's also going to be for all business operations. The entire building will be open on that date. We'll be monitoring the situation in case there's any changes, but without that, we will be continuing on. And I sent you a copy of a very dense document that we just received today. It's called Preliminary Offering Statement, or a POS. And it has to do with the bond issue. It is something that is put together by Piper, I don't, with their
Piper
Jeffrey, yes. And bond counsel and financial advisor, Ashley, and staff. And there's no requirement that it be approved by anybody else. And the action taken by the council with the ordinances and resolutions putting it in place, you gave staff the authorization to go ahead and do whatever needed to be done. But at the same time, if you want, because this is going out, And you're talking to anybody that might buy the bonds, and the city is you. And so if you have any reason why you want more time to go ahead and look at that, that's fine. We just need to know, because we're going to be going to market like in a week for the bonds. And that date can be changed, and we will change it depending on how much time you think it might take. So it's up to you if you want to have time to look at that and comment on it.
I'm good.
We just want to give everybody a chance. Okay, all right. So then we will proceed with that and hold the date the same. Okay? All right, and I think that's all I have.
I wanted just a note on the procedure for comment phase. Since we're going back to an open room, I will probably ask the room first. And then I think we can just kind of skip the whole idea of people signing up ahead of time, and we'll just go with raised hands for Zoom. Does that make sense for you guys?
We left it as optional because if somebody's calling in, they may not know how to raise their hand on the phone. So we left it as you may call in first, or you can raise your hand.
It also makes it easier when I have to find them if I know somebody is trying to make a comment.
That's what I needed to know. So that's fine then.
And we've been telling people like, hey, you don't have to call in, but if you'd like to, you're welcome. You can always raise your hand, because some people aren't sure if they want to speak or not.
Jim Pano's actually got his hand up.
Jim, no. Okay, Jim, raise your hand. Jim Pano can what?
Can none.
Can't talk yet. Hey, Jim.
Hello.
Hi, Jim.
Sorry, I was a little distracted on the last minute. I just got the note that you unmuted me.
Go ahead. What you got?
Go ahead for what?
Oh, you had your hand raised with thinking you were going to say something.
Oh, no, that was a mistouch on my phone, I guess.
Nice talking to you, Jim.
I'll see you next meeting.
Okay, I love the new sandcastle poster. Looks great.
Oh, it's going to be fun. I'm excited this year.
Yep. Okay, with that, we will be adjourned. Thank
One
you.
quick question. Did we want to schedule the executive session for April 5th when we were talking about the evaluation?
I guess, yeah.
Does that work for everyone at 5 p.m.? It just saves me from sending you guys a message tomorrow.
I won't know until April 4th, but sure.
Okay, so can we tentatively plan on April 5th at 5 p.m. We'll do the executive session and before the regular meeting.
Right.
Would you check? I think we used more than an hour last time.
Okay, I'll check and see how long it took last time and then send you guys an email.
I think a couple hours actually.
You guys can start at 4, or do you want to check schedule to get back to me?
If you want to do it on a separate day, this was.
Yeah.
Time to a meeting.
That actually might be better on a separate day, just because that makes for a heck of a long day. We have another meeting at the same time.
Especially 2 hours.
Like today. Here's some 4.
Do you want to maybe do it the Tuesday beforehand? Because I think Tuesdays seem to work best for me.
That's in.
I'll have to get back to you.
Okay.
I think that if you tell us how you'd rather do it, but I believe there was an intermediate step where you met with Ashley. And then I got a document, so the meeting with me may not be the first one.
Okay.
So Jen, if you can follow with that and how many meetings Ashley's looking to,
Okay.
so we can tie that up.
I'll talk to Ashley tomorrow and then I'll send you guys an email.
Okay.
All right.
I think we're still adjourned.
Thank you.